Minecraft is a pretty cool survival game. You can mine blocks, place blocks, and craft items. So today, I'm going to make my own survival game, so let's get started. So first, I'm going to import 2 Unity assets to help me make the terrain, and here's the result. Terrain is pretty cool. There are rocks, grass, trees, sand, and water everywhere. But right now, it's just a walking simulator. So let's make it more cooler by adding an axe to the game, so you can actually chop the trees and collect resources. So then I decided to start modeling an axe in Blender so you can chop the trees. But when I imported it into Unity, it kind of broke. When I say it kind of broke, I mean it broke a lot. Some of the faces are missing, even though on the other side they aren't missing. The colors are mixed up, so instead I made this beautiful prototype axe model. And I also made the player kind of hold the axe, so you can pretend that you're going to go and chop a tree, even though you can't really chop a tree yet. So that's what I'm planning to add next. So now, after a bit of animating, you can swing your axe. But it happens really slowly, so I'm going to have to speed it up later. And if you do it too much, it just starts spinning and it won't stop. And then it makes you realize that the axe looks like a shoe brush, not an axe. First, I wanted to make a trigger around the tree to detect the axe, but that didn't really work out, so instead I decided to use a ray cast to chop the trees. So if you hit the tree 5 times, it will get a rigid body and it can topple over and rotate around however it feels like. So right here, just toppling over. And the collider's a little broken, so yeah, it can just basically roll underwater. One thing I had to fix was the constantly changing FPS. Sometimes it was at 30 and sometimes it was at 60. So I set up a limit for it so it wouldn't change that much, since the axe animation speed depended on the FPS. I also added some of these rocks everywhere, and you can't pick them up yet. Also, I fixed the tree collider so you can walk up really close to it, instead of being really far away from it while chopping the tree, so it's a bit more realistic. The next thing I added was a cooldown bar for the axe. It felt way too fast when you were using the axe, so now there's a cooldown for chopping trees. This also got rid of the shoe brush bug. The next thing I tried to do was make my own tree model instead of using the asset included with the generator. But what happened is that I created these giant metal frame-sucking metal trees that are extremely inefficient. So I'm going to have to make another tree, this time way more efficient and definitely smaller. After a bit of modeling, I created a pretty good tree model that's efficient and small. I can generate over 1,000 of them in the world, but I cannot chop them yet, since I still didn't import the code from the last tree to this tree. After attaching the tree chopping script onto the new tree, it can now follow down the hill just like the last tree. And it's a bit more accurate now, since I gave it a more accurate mesh collider. Before I got working on the new textures, I decided to do some optimization, so the game would be really smooth. And now, instead of getting 30 to 40 FPS, the player gets 50 to 60 FPS, which is pretty good. And now I can get working on the new textures for the ground. After a bit of work, I now have a new grass texture. It doesn't really go with the pre-made ground texture, so that's probably what I'm going to have to repaint next. So now, after making a new ground texture, the grass kind of goes with the ground texture, but the rocks don't really go with the ground texture. So I'm probably going to have to repaint the rocks next. I didn't really like the ground texture that there was before, so I remade it, and I also created this pretty cool rock texture, which is basically a gray background with some dark gray scribbles in it. I also made a dark rock texture to make the mountains feel more mountainy. I almost forgot that I needed to create a new rock model, so I made one, and here it is. It looks pretty cool, but it gets stuck in the grass. So I'll probably have time in the next episode to fix it, and I'll leave it alone for now, since it's not that big of a problem. And now, after a bit of work, you have now a main menu. You can click play or quit, but let's click play. After you click play, you have an option to create a world. You have the forest, and you have 3 more coming soon buttons. I'll probably fill those in later, but for now, let's go to the forest. When you click it, it's going to drop you in, and as you can tell already, the grass spawning area is extremely huge. I made that so it could do justice to the great view of the mountains. So now you can just walk around, chop some trees, and walk around. It's currently not really much of a survival game, but I'll add resources and inventories probably in the next episode. So subscribe, like, and share for the next episode, and I'll see you next time. Bye!